On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers win again as they avoid a trap game against the Charlotte Hornets. Darius Garland outshines LaMelo Ball, and we'll start to take a look ahead at the matchup of the season when OKC comes to town later this week. That's all straight ahead on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, my new Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube right now, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Also, Locked On Cavs now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Cavs Daily Newsletter, your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Cavs newsletter. The Cleveland Cavaliers, once again, pushing their winning streak to 10 games with a 115-105 win over the Charlotte Hornets on Sunday night at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And I thought that this game was impressive, not because they won another game by 10 points, not because they beat the lowly Charlotte Hornets, but because of the energy that the Cavs had early on in this one. So let's rewind a bit and let's go back to last week. They play 4 games out west. They have games against the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Warriors, wrap up with the Dallas Mavericks on Friday, and then they come home. They get home very early in the morning Saturday, and then they play Sunday evening at 6 o'clock, which is a little bit of a weird start time for an NBA player that, you know, those guys are creatures of habits. There's no doubt about that they are used to being in a routine, doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's kind of how they live their lives. So that means that, yeah, a game against the Charlotte Hornets in a vacuum doesn't look like a big deal. Charlotte's a bad team. They've been a bad team all year. The Cavs going into Sunday night had already beaten them twice. But when you add in the fact that it's the first game back from a 9-day road trip, of which the Cavs were not in the Eastern time zone at all, that does throw a bit of a wrench into things. And that can be an area where you see teams kind of have an off night. It was something Max Strus referred to this after the game as a situation that it is a trap game, right? And he didn't want to I don't think he was necessarily taking a shot at the Charlotte Hornets by saying that. It's more so a situationally based thing where the Cavs have been traveling a lot. They played games in 3 different time zones over the course of the last week. So this was, and Kenny Atkinson, even after the game, I asked him about it, and he basically mentioned that this was an instance where he was worried about what the team's energy was going to look like coming out of the gates. I did think that the Cavs had pretty good energy tonight on Sunday night as they played the Hornets, even early on. I just thought they were kind of missing shots, but overall, and the thing that told me they had good energy was what they looked like defensively. In the first half on Sunday night, the Cavs held the Hornets to just 48 points, which is, again, Charlotte, not a great team. It's not as if they did this against a team like Boston or OKC, but those guys still get paid. Like, they're still NBA players. They're still capable of going out and winning on any given night. They just don't win very often. But holding that team to 48 points, I thought was a really good sign of, one, the energy that the Cavs had on Sunday, which, like I mentioned, is a tough thing to sort of drum up when you are not used to being back in the Eastern time zone. When that first home game can at times, and no one said this tonight, but in the past I've heard this about like this situation, that first home game back can feel like a road game. That has nothing to do with the crowd. It has everything to do with sort of not knowing where you're at on the planet, right? So the Cavs having that energy, I think, is a really good sign of a team that's a pretty mature group. Say what you want about how much they goof around in the locker room and all the jokes and stuff and the laughter that they have, which I think is a really good sign. But when it comes down to business and taking care of a game that the Cavs should beat the Hornets on paper 10 out of 10 times, happens. The NBA doesn't work that way. Upsets do happen, but the Cavs took care of business on Sunday night. They handled this in a very mature way, the way that a team that is a championship contender should be handling this type of game. And I thought that, to me, was one of the most impressive things to take away from Sunday night, is that, yeah, they very easily could have played like garbage in this game. They could have lost this game to Charlotte, and they could have made every excuse in the book that, oh, we traveled a bunch. It's our first game back. We didn't have our legs with us. We're exhausted from being on the road for 9 days. All those things can be true, and I'm sure they were true. Like, I'm sure the Cavs were feeling the effect of this road trip, but they didn't let that affect how they played on the floor. And I think that was the best thing to take away if you're a Cavs fan from this game, that, okay, yeah, they didn't maybe beat Charlotte by as much as they should. And the final score was not indicative of how this game was played. Like, Kenny Atkinson subbed. He emptied the bench with around 3 minutes left, and that unit was outscored by 9 points in the final 3 minutes and 3 seconds or whatever they played. So this game was not a 10-point game. It was much closer to a 20-point game than a 10-point game when it's all said and done. But the Cavs took care of business, and that is something that I look at as a great sign for the maturity level of this team, for just having their heads on straight and being able to keep the one goal in mind. Because does winning or losing against Charlotte on a Sunday night in January determine whether or not this team can win a championship? Obviously, no. But I do think it's a good barometer of just how seriously this Cavs team is taking the process of getting better. The other thing that stood out from Sunday night was the battle between Darius Garland and LaMelo Ball. I think that this was, I don't want to say it was personal, because I can't say that Darius doesn't like LaMelo or LaMelo doesn't like Darius. I don't know those things to be true, so I can't say that. But I do think that in watching those two compete and watching those two go at it, I think that there was a little bit of something that had to do with the All-Star voting process, that maybe a point that Darius Garland wanted to prove. So LaMelo Ball of Charlotte was the leader in vote getting after the first All-Star returns that came out this past week. LaMelo, I don't think, deserves to be an All-Star with what he's done this year. I think he puts up a lot of empty stats. I don't think he's a winning player. I don't think he's the type of player that should be rewarded with an All-Star appearance, but he's a player that kids love. Which does not make me necessarily feel great about the future of basketball, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Donovan Mitchell was second in that voting amongst Eastern Conference guards. Darius Garland was nowhere in the top 10. And I do think that Darius Garland took that as a bit of a slight and had a point to prove on Sunday night. Darius overall outplayed LaMelo. There was a stretch in the first half of this one where it kind of looked like Darius and LaMelo were going back and forth, almost as if it was a one-on-one battle. But the thing that threw a wrench into that was the Charlotte Hornets decided, okay, well, we're just going to trap Darius and get the ball out of his hands. And Darius is a guy that consistently does make the right play. So he wasn't going to try and beat a double team in the first half of a game when there was no reason for doing that, especially with the team up by nearly 20 points at that point. But I do think it was something that, Darius does view as a sign of respect, that a team is willing to put two on the ball in the first half against him. But I also think it was something that probably frustrated him a little bit, that he didn't get the opportunity to show off against LaMelo, because I have no doubt he would have cooked LaMelo. Like, LaMelo is a terrible defensive player. That's something I have no reason to believe he would not have had his way with him. But I do think that was something that Darius would have liked to have had the opportunity to prove it head-to-head against LaMelo a little bit more than he got to. Overall, Darius had a much better game. I thought he was very efficient. He had 25 points on just 14 shots. He's been playing really efficient basketball lately, I should say. I've been very impressed with the way that he's been playing. He deserves to be an All-Star. Again, I don't know that he will be. I just don't know that there's going to be a spot for him, especially if LaMelo makes the team. But I have been really, really impressed with what I've seen out of Darius Garland so far this year. LaMelo Ball finished the night with 24 points on 20 shots. It was a really inefficient night. He padded his stats late. I did not think he had a good game. Again, one game is not indicative of who a player is, but if you just watch LaMelo Ball, he's not a winning player. And that is something that I just think, if you want to represent the best of the best in basketball, and if you watch the games, I think it's clear which one of these two guys should be an All-Star and which one of them should not be. And the guy that should be an All-Star plays for the Cavs in Darius Garland. He was awesome again tonight. He was one of a few players that had a really good game for the Cavs on Sunday. And that leads me to my next point. One of the best things about the Cavs that maybe doesn't get talked about enough is just how balanced their offensive attack is. We'll do that next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball season heating up, and there's no better way to get real money action while watching your favorite NBA stars than with Prize Picks. Whether you're a diehard fan or just want some friendly competition, Prize Picks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. So here's how it works. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. You think LeBron's going to drop 30 points? Maybe Luka, when he gets healthy again, going to have more than 8 assists in a game? Pick more or less. Prize Picks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. Plus, with Prize Picks flex play option, even if one of your picks doesn't hit, you can still double your money. Plus, when you hit, you get your money fast, sometimes as quick as 15 minutes. It's pretty fast, right? We love to see that. We want to get our money quick after a win. It's honestly one of the best ways to keep the game exciting. And to make it even better, now is the perfect time to join, because if you download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA, that's LOCKEDON NBA, to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app, use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. No need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. One of the best things about this Cavs team is just how balanced they are offensively. And I think it's easy to look at the box score and say, oh, Darius Garland, he was awesome. And he was awesome. He had 25 points on 8 of 14 shooting. But the way that the Cavs balance out their scoring, I think, is a really impressive thing. And I think it's a big asset for this team because it makes them so much more difficult to stop. So you look up and down. Darius had 25. He was the best player in this game. Donovan Mitchell had 19 points. And guess what? 17 of those came in the second half. That's right. Donovan Mitchell only had 2 points in the first half, and the Cavs were still leading. Like, that is one of the more impressive things, is that Donovan Mitchell can have a half with 2 points on 1 of 4 shooting. It wasn't like he played bad. He just scoring wasn't the thing that he needed to do. And the Cavs were still up by 15 at halftime. And yes, I understand. It's against Charlotte. It's not against a great team. You would probably notice this a little bit more if they did this against OKC coming up on Wednesday. But the fact that the scoring can be so spread out is a really, really important part of the way that this team operates. And then, of course, Donovan, when he does need to get it going, can get it going really easily because he's Donovan Mitchell. And he can go off after having 2 points in the first half, have 9 in the third quarter alone. And that is something that the Cavs can rely on because they know they're going to get that out of him. But if you're an opposing defense, it's a really difficult thing to stop because, okay, Charlotte can look at that and say, hey, in the first half, we did a good job of bottling up Donovan Mitchell, right? Like, that's a realistic thing they can say. When you hold a player the caliber of Donovan to 2 points, if you're Charlotte specifically defensively, you're going to feel really good about what just happened. Why wouldn't you? But then you look at the scoreboard, it's like, oh man, we're down by 15. That's a tough pill to swallow. If you are an NBA team, because you can only allocate so many defensive resources to so many guys. And the Cavs have so many different options to beat teams offensively. That's what makes this offensive attack so impressive, because maybe Donovan's not going to have a great game every night. He's not. No player does. But on the nights that he doesn't have great games, maybe like Sunday night, he's picked up pretty easily by a teammate. Darius Garland had 25 points on Sunday. Maybe he doesn't have 25 points on Wednesday night, the next time the Cavs play. And just leave the Thunder out of this. This is not about that matchup specifically. But let's say he doesn't have a great game. There's a chance Evan Mobley goes for 30 again. Let's say Evan Mobley doesn't have an awesome night. You know, I didn't think he had an awesome night for the Cavs on Sunday. He finished with 17 points on 13 shots. It wasn't his most efficient night for sure. But you know who had a really good night for the Cavs? Jared Allen had a really good night for the Cavs, because there are so many different ways that the Cavs can attack teams. Allen had 19 points on 9 of 10 shooting on a night when Charlotte can say, you know what, I think we did a good job on Evan Mobley. But it doesn't matter because there's so many different guys that can impact the game for the Cavs offensively. I thought George Niang, again, had a really good night off the bench. He had 10 points. Max Strus had 9 points off the bench, not necessarily shooting the ball where he expects to yet, but he was a plus 24. The Cavs outscored Charlotte by 24 points in the 24 minutes that Max Strus played. That stat doesn't always tell the full story, but it does feel like when Max is getting on the floor, he's impacting the game in positive ways. And to me, when you look at this rotation for the Cavs, it's missing players that don't make positive impacts. And that's not to say every player is going to go out and have a great night every night. Like, I did not think Evan Mobley was awesome on Sunday. I didn't think Caris LeVert had his best game on Sunday. And it was actually really weird to look at the box score and see he was a -1 because Caris has been the plus-minus king. He's third in the NBA right now in total plus-minus behind just Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Evan Mobley. But he didn't have a great night. Only made one shot. Wasn't the best night we've seen from Caris LeVert, but it doesn't matter because there are so many different ways for this Cavs team to attack. They didn't shoot the ball that well. Shot like 34, 35% from three. They still find a way to win. That is what has changed about this offense. Because if this game would have happened last year, let's say last year there's a game, maybe it's against Charlotte, where Donovan Mitchell has 2 points in the first half. The Cavs are in trouble. Now, Donovan Mitchell has 2.5 points, and the Cavs win that half by 15 points. That's not minimizing Donovan Mitchell because he's a great player, but that's maximizing what the rest of this team can do. It's shining a light on just how good everybody else on this roster has been for the Cavs. And, the other part of Evan Mobley's night in specific, like, again, I didn't think he was great. He only scored 17 points. He took 13 shots, was not his most efficient night. But the fact that I'm now talking about Evan Mobley didn't have a great night and he scored 17 points, it kind of makes you feel as if, okay, this guy really has started to arrive. If that is a subpar night for him, 17 points on 13 shots, you feel pretty good about where things are going with him offensively. I do think, too, it was notable. Again, he didn't shoot the ball that well. He was just 1 of 6 from 3, but he took 6 3-pointers. Evan's volume from beyond the arc has really increased lately. I think that's a good thing for the Cavs. I'm going to dive into that a little bit more this week, but I think that is an important aspect of what's going on with the Cavs. So now the Cavs have won 10 straight games. All 10 of these games have been by double digits. That's a really impressive thing. And this one was very close to not being by double digits. Kenny Atkinson he emptied the bench with around 3 minutes left, and that group was outscored by 9 points. So Charlotte almost actually only lost this game by 8, even though the Cavs were up by 19 when they subbed their starters out for the most part. I believe Ty Jerome was still with that lineup. But they've also now won 14 of the last 15 games. 13 of those 14 games have been by 10 or more points. So it's not as if the Cavs are just going out and winning. They're going out and just destroying teams. They're absolutely throttling teams night in and night out. Again, getting back to what I was talking about in the first segment, this is a situation where this should be a trap game. This should be a game where the energy is not where it should be or not where you would want it to be. A game where you're not making shots. And the Cavs did not make shots. Like, they did not shoot the ball objectively well on Sunday night. And I think that's part of the reason why this game was only a 19-point game when the starters left it, because they didn't shoot the ball well from outside. They didn't have one of their really good nights from shooting three. They were only 34%. And this is a team that's been shooting 40+% in most of their games lately. So that's part of the reason why it wasn't a blowout of magnificent proportions, but it just seems like every single night they're finding a way to not only win, but thoroughly beat teams. In every game other than the Miami game of their last 14, they've been up by 15 points at some point, or 12 points at some point, I think it might be. They're just, every single game, they have a double-digit lead. And it feels as if you close your eyes and you open them back up in a minute, and the Cavs lead goes from 5 to 15. Every single night that happens. It happened in the second quarter on Sunday where, they had an 8-point lead, and then you look up, it's 21. It happens all the time. And I'm starting to, and maybe we'll find out more this week when the Cavs take on the Thunder. But it's starting to feel as if I don't know what the antidote to this is. If you are an opponent, I don't know how this gets stopped because it happens over and over and over and over again. It's a constant thing. You can count on the Cavs going on it's not always a Cavalanche, and I don't want to get too cavalier with that word. I don't want to be out there saying, oh, Cavalanche. Like, I think that should be a special thing still. But they go on these runs every single night, it feels like. It feels like, honestly, to me, this is the 2014-15 Golden State Warriors reincarnated. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is going to win MVP the way Steph Curry did, but everything else about that team feels so similar to this team. The way they beat teams, I think defensively they're getting much better. I haven't looked at what their defensive rating was on Sunday, but defensively they're getting much better. Offensively, they are historic. This is a team that all they do is tell you they're a championship contender. We might get a better look at just where they measure up next time they're in action on Wednesday. Let's start just real quickly looking ahead to Wednesday night's matchup with Oklahoma City right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. If you're looking for NFL, obviously we've got playoffs coming up. Cleveland Browns not going to be involved, but a lot's going to be involved. I would like to point out Cincinnati is not going to be involved either. If you want to look at NBA, something that caught my eye as I was scrolling through FanDuel a little bit earlier, Evan Mobley has risen up the most improved player odds. He is now 5th in the NBA in odds at plus 1,000. He's behind Tyler Hero, Jalen Johnson, Cade Cunningham, Norm Powell, and then it's him. The way Evan's playing, listen, he's going to be a first-time All-Star. I don't know that he wins this award. I don't know that Tyler Hero wins this award either. I'm very curious to see what happens with him as Jimmy Butler. That situation continues to rage on in Miami. But I think Evan or Cade Cunningham could be a pretty smart play here if you're on FanDuel again. Evan's at plus 1,000 for most improved player. It's hard for me to find a player that's been much more improved. Also, the Cavs have moved up. Their Eastern Conference odds, they're now tied for second with New York at plus 500 to win the East. And in the NBA championship realm, they're still 4th at plus 1,100. But FanDuel is the place for you to go if you're interested in that or any of the NFL playoff action going on. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com today. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Wednesday night, OKC coming to Cleveland. It is the regular season game of the season. This is a measuring stick game. This is a game that I'm not going to say if the Cavs lose, they're not contenders, because that's not true. But this is the type of game that if the Cavs win, they're going to start to get a lot more attention. Just in the same way that if the Thunder win, they're going to start to get a lot more attention. So the Cavs will enter this one at 31-4. They have won 31 of their first 35 games. They're currently on pace to win between 72 and 73 games, which is absolutely outrageous. They've been incredible so far, but OKC has to. OKC is 30-5 after they beat Boston on Sunday. The Thunder will come into this game on a 15-game winning streak. The Cavs go into this game on a 10-game winning streak. Just a little bit of historical context here. This is, and I got this from Mike Goldfarb over at Yahoo. This is the second greatest regular season matchup in NBA history by combined winning percentage. Only one other regular season game in NBA history has put together two teams with a better winning percentage. Of course, this is like a certain amount of games down the road. This is not, two 1-0 teams playing against each other. Like, I don't know what the minimum for number of games played is, but the Cavs are 31-4. OKC is 30-5. That winning percentage is 87.1 combined. The only other game in NBA history with a higher combined winning percentage than that this deep into the season, in 2016, the Warriors were 40-4, and they took on the Spurs, who were 38-6. That had an 88.6% winning percentage. So what this tells me is Wednesday night should be incredible. It also tells me a week from Thursday, when the Cavs go to OKC, we could be talking about an even greater matchup. Because let's just say that the Cavs win this game against OKC on Wednesday, and then they take care of business. They beat Toronto the night after, and then they beat the Pacers, and then they beat the Pacers again in Indy, and then they go to OKC riding what would that be, a 14-game winning streak? And let's just say the Thunder win their games after the Cavs leading up to them. So then you'd be looking at a 35, 36-4 team going up against a team with 6 losses potentially. Like, that could be a just absolute historic matchup. Just the way that I think that Wednesday's game is going to be potentially the game of the year in the NBA. If you want more on that too, the Locked On Cavs Whip Around episode back today. It's going to come out very early this afternoon. I talked with Rylan Stiles, who covers the Thunder for us at Locked On Thunder. He does a great job there. We talked about this matchup and, frankly, whether or not we think this is a finals preview. And I do think that you guys will be pretty surprised with how highly Rylan views the Cavs. I think people nationally are starting to catch on. And what Rylan had to say, I think a lot of you guys are going to be really, really happy. Just the way that he talks about the Cavs in this one is very, very interesting stuff from him. But make sure to keep an eye out for that. And I do want to say thank you for making Locked On Cavs today your first listen, for making it your first listen every day. Like I've said, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed to Locked On Cavs as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I'll be back tomorrow taking a little bit of a deeper dive into the Cavs matchup with OKC right here on Locked On Cavs.